representation of gender, and My Name is Emily. What do these three things have to do with each other? They are all examples of gender portrayal. Well, at least in My Name is Emily, they are. My Name is Emily follows the story of a girl attempting to break her father out of a mental institution with the help of her new friend from school. My Name is Emily opened with a collage of moments throughout Emily's life. This collage initially focuses specifically on Emily's birth. Birth becomes a subtle motif of this movie, using it to establish a change in a character. What is interesting about the use of birth as a motif is that it is primarily used to show change and give agency to male characters, despite the action of giving birth being a biological function of the female sex. This motif starts with Emily's birth.
You said it was the day that changed your life.
Emily's father, Robert, became aware of how much he didn't know when she was born, and thus was reborn himself. Some scholars consider birth to be both divine and human at the same time. Ruth Kara Ivanov Kaniel writes that birth, as a reality and as a metaphor, challenges the borders of human knowledge, since it is simultaneously connected to the human subconscious and the divine image. Robert perceives Emily's birth in the same way. Robert pores over books and his computer, while his wife is left to care for their daughter. He holds knowledge in the highest regard, and spends this stage of his life obtaining as much knowledge as possible. Emily spends the whole movie trying to get her father back, despite there being very few scenes where any of the male characters actually display any sort of fatherly conduct. The film plays on the idea of an absent father in multiple ways. Robert is physically absent, Arden's father doesn't care to spend time with his son, and Emily's foster father barely interacts with her. The adult male characters fit perfectly into the stereotype of being bad or distant fathers, therefore sticking to historical and traditional gender norms.
I haven't been much of a dad, have I?
The closest we get to scenes showing strong father-daughter bonding are the instances where people call Emily and her father mean names. Robert teaches her that there is power in deciding what definition you want to use, which ties in particularly well with today's social environment of gender identity and expression, despite that not being something this movie discusses at all.
They can't be a weirdo.
Read that.
From the Old English weird, meaning destiny, fate, or the power to control destiny. They don't know that.
But now you do.
Emily is taught this after her father's second rebirth. This rebirth was not left to be interpreted, but rather stated directly in the voiceover.
She said it was like watching a man giving birth to himself.
In this new stage of Robert's life, he teaches about truly living. He approaches knowledge in a new way. He spreads it instead of learning about it. His career takes off when he starts teaching about sex. Sex is something that men are often praised for, while women are shunned for it. Historically, female characters in literature fell into three categories, as discussed in Gender, Sexuality, and Marriage by Pat Gill. Sexually active hypocrites who scheme, betray, entrap, and deceive. Naive or ignorant young women who seem potentially amenable to seduction. And charming virgins who possess wealth and wit. Robert, on the other hand, was able to make a successful career out of talking about sex, but as we don't have a direct parallel to this level of sexuality in a female character in this film specifically, it can be argued that this association with sexuality is more of a character trait for Robert specifically, as opposed to a statement about male power and sex. The other instance where we see this birth motif being assigned to a male character is near the end of the film, where Arden pulls Emily out of the water. It visually associates Arden with the change in Emily that takes place throughout the movie. Early in the film, Emily avoids talking to others whenever possible. She is completely uninterested in boys and repeatedly tells Arden that there is no chance of anything romantic or physical happening between them. Emily and Arden's relationship is fundamentally different after he pulls her out of the water.
You asked me to be here, and I care if you live or die.
Emily may have felt abandoned in her life once her mom died and her father was taken away, which can make it hard to imagine that there are people who truly care about you. Arden shows her that this isn't the case. This is a turning point in their relationship. From this moment on, Emily is more vulnerable with Arden. She takes this newfound vulnerability into other aspects of her life, most notably deciding to stay with her foster mother, June, despite her father being out of the mental institution. While the change occurs in Emily, the driving force for this change is her relationship with Arden, therefore strengthening the association between the male characters and the use of birth as a metaphor. The adults in My Name is Emily stick closer to gender norms than the younger characters do. This is true of society in general. Studies have found that younger generations tend to be more egalitarian in their views of gender roles than the generation before. The youthful title character herself doesn't go out of her way to either uphold or break traditional femininity. Emily may be emotional, but she has agency in her life. Her clothes are neither super feminine nor masculine, but rather toe the line by pairing dark colors with dresses and skirts. This in itself is a way of expressing gender, and characterizes Emily as more individually defined than socially defined. However, if you look at Emily within the context of her film, her goal and journey itself add a layer to the portrayal of gender in My Name is Emily. This film can be considered a road movie, which is a historically masculine genre. Rollete and Tarr described road movies as a symbolic journey of self-discovery for its insecure, nomadic male protagonists whose antisocial behavior usually leads to tragedy. Emily fits into this definition to a certain extent. As seen in the change of her relationship with Arden throughout the movie, Emily went through growth during her trip to rescue her father. She opened up to the world more and became willing to give those around her a chance when she hadn't in the past. Her behavior in the beginning of the film could be considered antisocial, as she has a hard time getting along with her classmates and teachers. Where Emily differs from this definition is the outcome to her journey. Emily was able to find her father, but it wasn't the happy reunion she anticipated. She learned he chose to stay at the mental institution and resented him for it. Eventually, she found peace with her situation and was able to be happy in the life she had. Emily's choice to stay with her foster mother, June, after going through the effort to break her father out, shows a drastic change in character due to her journey. The outcome of her trip was more bittersweet than it was a tragedy. This fits into Emily's characterization as a whole. She subverts traditional expectations without trying to do so. These factors work together to make My Name is Emily a modern feminist take on the road movie genre. Going back to the idea that the older characters fit more readily into traditional gender norms, June is the archetype of traditional femininity. She is associated with traditionally female tasks and personality traits.
She kills me every day with the kindness and the chit-chat and the never-deviating freshness.
She is Robert's foil. Her intensely motherly characteristics are in direct contrast to Robert's lack of parental actions. She serves to make his absence even more stark. By having such a stereotypically feminine mother figure, Emily and the audience are hyper-aware of the lack of a true father figure. This gives June's femininity a purpose rather than making it part of a stereotype. Additionally, her traits make sense for her character within the world of the film. June chose to be a foster mother. She gives Emily support not because it is what society expects of her, but because she knows it is what Emily needs during this tumultuous time in her life. June is the perfect example of a character whose femininity is part of her strengths, and whose femininity is important to both the plot and emotional immersion of the film. With all these factors combined, it is easy to see that My Name is Emily is relatively non-traditional in the way that it represents gender. My Name is Emily doesn't rely on gender stereotypes as an easy way to create characters, but will employ them to create meaningful contrast. The film subverts gender expectations in order to show change. Robert and Arden are associated with the motif of birth to signify new beginnings in their lives. Emily is a female lead in a traditionally masculine genre, but her story doesn't end in the way that one would typically expect a road movie would. Instead of letting her father's choices make her story a tragedy, the growth she underwent during her journey allowed Emily to make the best out of her situation by accepting June as a mother figure while still seeing Robert as her father figure. All in all, My Name is Emily employs gender portrayal as a tool to signify a change in a character and their relationships with the people around them.